the place where 85% of affairs start, and a really insightful take on divorce that I've actually never heard before. Hey guys, I'm Father David Michael Moses. I'm a Catholic priest. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. So I want to watch two things with you guys right now that I thought were really, really significant, made some great points here that are worth thinking about, whether you are married or not. This first one is about the start of affairs, where they begin. So take a look at this video.
85% of affairs start at
Workplace,
work.
baby.
1 in 5 employees confess to being unfaithful with a colleague. And I was sitting there processing this, and I was truly stunned. I had never looked at that data, and so it was just brand new to me. I thought, my goodness, that's high. And so here was the thought that hit me in the room, and I'm going to hit you with it.
Okay.
When does risking not just your marriage and your relationship with your kids, but your job?
Yeah.
We're talking about, this feels like a massive risk.
Yeah.
In other words, having an affair outside of work may or may not affect your job in certain places. And a lot of places, if you are having an affair with someone at work, boy, you create a real weird dynamic. What does the
Blows it
leader
up.
do? I mean, it blows it up. What is going on in somebody where 1 in 5 people are saying, yeah, I've been unfaithful with a colleague? They get to the point where they have to know that's risky, but they just go, I don't care. What's going on there?
So we've created the loneliest generation in human history, and we've taken that to our homes, and we've asked our spouses to be everything. They have to be co-earners, co-parents, co-house runners. You have to be hot until you're 95 and still sleeping together. You have to like the same things, go to the same things, eat the same things. No human being can bear the weight that unskilled modern marriage is putting on a single person. And so what you have is 2 people who are good at co-managing the house. I'll get Little League practice, you get this, I'll make sure we call the plumber, I'll get the trash out. And you have absolutely no shared purpose or building anything together. And life becomes so quick and so fast. And then I go to work, and me and you and 2 amazing women are working together on a project that's going to help 10 million people. Now we have shared purpose. We're talking about how we feel about things. We have a goal. We have metrics. I'm spending more time with her or him than I am with my spouse.
That's right.
And the time we're spending together is rich. We're laughing, telling jokes. Oh my gosh. Of course it happens at work.
Right, because you're not getting it somewhere, and so now all of a sudden you start to project that.
So a couple takeaways from that. First of all, the workplace is dangerous. 85% of affairs start at work. So to say, oh, it's work related isn't an excuse to have bad boundaries. It's not a reason just to let anything fly. In fact, I might even say the opposite. If it's work related, you should be extra careful. You should be extra vigilant, extra diligent about making sure that you're cautious about what's going on there. And then he made a really fantastic point, which is that in a lot of marriages, sadly, people don't have this sense of mission, that we're on a mission together, that we're trying to raise children who are going to be saints. We're in a marriage here that's supposed to reflect God's love. We're supposed to model that for our kids, that we're trying to prepare these souls for heaven, prepare these souls to be lights in the world that are helping to shine goodness and truth and beauty. And if that sense of purpose and mission is missing in the vocation of marriage and the vocation of family life, then when you go to work and you're on a project with somebody else and you guys are focused together and you're having a good time and you're talking and you have this big picture of purpose together, well, then that starts to look really good. It starts to feel really good. People bond in purpose. They bond in mission. You know, to take it back even further, people used to bond in battle together. That when you have a common goal that brings people together, and if you don't have that at home, but you've got it in some sense at work, then it's easy to build a level of intimacy that you really shouldn't have or wouldn't want to have in other circumstances. So that's that second point, that the loss of mission is huge. And then lastly, I'll kind of jump ahead to something that he says at the end of the video, and that is, he says people call him all the time who have gone through a divorce or are going through a divorce. And they say, I never knew it was going to hurt this bad. I never knew my kids wouldn't want to look at me. I never knew it was going to cost this much emotionally and spiritually and relationally, that it was going to take this much out of me. The divorce ends up, it ruins everything. It ruins everything. The rates of infidelity, it's about 18 to 20% of marriages report to have infidelity, higher than you think. I remember listening to a divorce lawyer recently, and he said that if you were going to design an app, an online platform to cause infidelity, he said it would look just like Instagram and Facebook. Because what you have with that is you have an access to people's lives that you never would have otherwise. That maybe, you meet somebody at work, maybe you talk to them, you have a fine relationship, but somebody adds somebody on Facebook or Instagram, and that weekend you're seeing photos of them on vacation at the beach, and suddenly you're invited into an intimacy in their lives that you didn't used to have otherwise. Maybe somebody comments on a photo, somebody messages somebody, and then you build these bonds and these other connections. So I think it's worth looking, especially social media apps combined with this information about the start of affairs. It's worth really being very, very wary of. I also want to note for people that the rates, obviously, of pornography usage are very, very high. People often say, I would never cheat on my wife. I just look at pornography sometimes. Well, Jesus actually says, whoever lusts after a woman in his heart has committed adultery with her. That pornography is cheating. And I can't help, I don't have stats for this necessarily, but I can't help but wonder that if there are men out there who are looking at pornography and saying they're not cheating, that at some point, the enemy kind of tells you, well, you might as well be cheating because you know what you're doing. And then it's so much easier to take the next step and cross the next boundary and go over to the next line until your entire life has fallen apart. One final point before this other video on divorce. I think it's worth saying that the extent to which you love someone is directly correlated with what you're willing to sacrifice for them. Like how much you love them is measured by how much you're willing to sacrifice for them. So if we're not willing to sacrifice some of these social media apps for our marriages, then there's a problem with how well we're loving. If we're not willing to draw on some boundaries at work, then there's a problem with how much we're loving. That if we're willing to sacrifice, we're not willing to stop texting that person, then we probably don't love our spouse that much. And it's probably good to come to grips with that and change our behavior to make those sacrifices, to be willing to make those sacrifices. Lastly, this video, sad, but I thought was super, super helpful, very, very insightful when it comes to just the reality of divorce. I've never heard anybody say this before in these terms.
Anyone that's the child of a divorce has witnessed that one of the parents left. Mm-hmm. That's an option. Truly, it's an option that these people can leave. Mm-hmm.
So in other words, a child growing up without that would assume nobody can leave in this relationship. That these parents are here, they got to stay, they got to deal with all of us. We all got to make this work. When one parent leaves, when there's a divorce, it opens up this whole new world of insecurity.
You know it now. Mm-hmm. You're down to one. Love and cherish and perform for that one person because you're down to one.
Yeah.
I hold true that I love my mother more than anything, and she is the greatest woman to ever be on planet Earth.
But did you have a
also, I
choice?
don't know that I had a choice to feel otherwise.
Absolutely. That's what I was going to say. Do you have a choice? No. Somebody leaves and you go, wait a second. If they leave,
You can leave?
Exactly.
that means you can leave, you can leave, you can leave, you can leave. And then you forget, like once you get outside of the family, then are you reacting to the potential of anybody leaving?
Great points in that. Obviously, first of all, that the loss of one means you can now lose the other. That as a child, your whole life seems very fragile now. That you're not sure if at some point in the future there will be no one. That if one person can leave, then the other person can leave. I might end up with no one. And along with that, throughout your life, you might constantly have issues with people wondering just if they're going to leave you like everybody else did. When marriage should be the exact opposite. It should be a husband and wife providing a foundation of security and stability for their children. But the second part of that I thought was also very, very insightful, which is that the child now says, okay, I don't want to lose the only one I have left. So I will do whatever it takes to not lose the one I have left. Or in some case, the child might even feel like I messed up. That's the reason why I lost the other parent. So now I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to love my mom. I'm going to make them number one. I am going to sacrifice everything for them. I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep them happy so they don't abandon me too. Which again flips the script. The parent should be the one providing for the child, not the child providing some kind of security for the parent. Makes you a very insecure people pleaser in a lot of ways. Good insight, but sad. Worth thinking about, and why marriage is so important to remain intact. For us as Catholics, marriage is supposed to be the image of God. The fidelity among the spouses is a reflection of God's fidelity to humanity. And God, all throughout Scripture, we see again and again, God never abandons his people. And so that's what marriage should be. It should be teaching your children about who God is, that God never leaves us, that God the Father is always faithful to us. And so when there's a divorce that happens, it's really damaging because it hurts a child's perception of marriage and parenthood, but even more, it hurts a child's perception of God and who God is. Okay, well, if my parents aren't going to be faithful to me, then God the Father probably won't be faithful to me either. That God the Father might just abandon me when I sin, and he'll never take me back. That he'll never love me forever. That his love will come and go. His presence will come and go. Really, really damaging stuff that I see a lot with people, especially, like I said, because marriage is supposed to be the opposite. It's supposed to be this foundation. I had actually had a friend tell me recently, and he's had a difficult life. And he told me, hey, Father, I see in you a confidence, because it seems like you knew growing up that if you failed, your dad would catch you. That you have a good relationship with your dad, and that you could go and try these crazy things, and you knew the Father would always be there for you. And that really made me think a lot, because I never really heard it in those terms before. I never really thought about that a lot, to be honest. But since that conversation, reflecting on it, I think there's a lot of truth to it. That I do have parents who I felt were always going to be there for me. And that even if, nothing crazy, but even if some idea I had or some project I'd come up with, whether it was to have a big concert with a bunch of other priests, or to post videos on YouTube or Instagram, or to become a priest, to go off to seminary, that I did have this sense that even if things didn't go as I planned, didn't work out like I'd hoped, that they would always be there for me. That foundation, that if I fell backwards, I would land on something solid, which was them. And so thanks, Mom and Dad, if you guys are watching this. But it also breaks my heart for kids who don't have this. And so it's worth, I'll just say, if you're going through a hard marriage right now, it's worth sticking it out. It's worth it for you, for your kids, for what you can accomplish, what you can be. Get back on the mission, get back focused on what it could be for the world. And hopefully that'll be able to heal some things. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this stuff in the comments. I certainly found it interesting. And we'll see you next time. God bless.